Welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be making this gown, and the down part of this gown, that is the skirt side. And I used 2.5 yards for this dress, and I attached the tail. I didn't cut the tail directly to this gown, and I'm going to be making an illustration, so stay tuned. Yeah, so to make this clothes now, I folded this cloth into two first, then I folded again into another two, leaving my zip allowance of about 1.5 inch. So I marked my waist to hip and hip to knee length. Now see where I folded. This is where I'll be taking my measurement. So now for my waist, I removed my half length because this is a gown. So I removed the upper part of this gown, which is 17, and then I marked at 24 for my hip. At this point, I want to make an illustration. This second line I marked now at 39.5 is, I marked it as my knee length, but this is not the right way to measure it. So right now, let me just go ahead. Measuring my waist. My waist is about 34. I divided it into two to have 17. I added 4 inches allowance to have 21. I divided 21 by 2 to have 10.5. So at 10.5, I'll be marking this on my fabric. So this 10.5 is my waist. Now when I get to that nail point, I'm going to make an illustration before I mark the actual nail point, because this is not the nail point I will be using for this cloth. So right now I'm just measuring my hip, which is 41. I divided into 2. I divided 41 into 2 to have 20.5, and I added 4 inches, so I have 24.5. I divided 24.5 into 2 to have 12.2 something, 12.25 for thereabout. So I'll just approximate that to 12.5. So that's it. So I'll just be connecting my waist to my hip. Now this is where the mask goes, and when you want to measure this place, you can see that my hip is 12.5. It's either that you measure your client's knee when she wants, just tell the client to do as if he or she wants to walk. Rather, let the person do as if she wants to walk, and then you measure the circumference of around that knee point, or you just minus 2 inches from your hip measurement. Just like my hip is 12.5, I minus 2 to have that same 10.5, which is the same measurement with my waist. So this can also go. So I'll just be connecting this upward. Now if you use this particular measurement to go for your nail, to measure this your nail point, you will discover that you cannot walk freely with this particular measurement. So it is better that whenever you're measuring for this particular gown, you go up by about 3 inches. It's better that you measure it. It's just there about 19, maybe between 19 and 18. I'll just measure it. I just cleaned it now, so you see the difference between the former one and the new one. Now this is me measuring the 19, and the other line is still faint, so you can see the difference between the former one. You see the difference in shape, so, and then you will see that with this particular measurement you'll be able to walk freely in this gown than when it is down on your nail. So I just came up by about 3 inches, and then I marked that same 10.5, that's 10.5, and then I'll be connecting it to my hip from there. I hope this explanation really works well, as per I hope it's really being understood. So I just connected it, the lines, and then I slanted again. Now see the difference between the slant. You see that the slant is coming from a higher point now, and the hip is different. Now this clothes, this person will be able to walk freely on this gown than when it was coming from the nail. It is not always right to measure this clothes from the nail. In fact, it's not right, so that your client will be able to walk, or so you'll be able to walk in the clothes. So this is it. Now this cloth is going to be having a tail, but before then, when I'm sewing, I'll just slant by 1/2 inch, and this is totally optional because I will not be using a dart for this front part. So I just notched this part where I'll be slanting, and then I'll be measuring it because I'll be adding a tail to it. And so I will want the tails to have to be a bit longer than the cloth, just a bit longer than the normal measurement. So I just notched the other part so that when I want to attach the tail, I'll know where to start from. I will trim off the excesses now of that zip allowance, so it will not be more than 1.5. Now for the tail, I just bring as a fabric like this and then fold in a triangular form as if I want to cut a fillet. That's the way I'll be folding, and then I'll mark the length I want on this fabric. I told you I just wanted it to be longer than the main fabric, just a bit longer, than not too much. And this tail, you can always reduce it. If the width is too much for you, you can reduce it. Now this is the point where I will attach the tail. When I'm coming then, I'll just slant a bit. This is the zip side though, so I will just slant a bit. I will not sew straight this way. So let me just sew it so I can open it and show you. I double stitched. This is the tail. I have already turned it with lining, and I just attached it to this point like this, and then I will just sew. That's all. Attaching the tail is so easy to make. You can always reduce this tail or increase it. So that's all for this gown. This is me just attaching the rest of the body. So subscribe to my channel.